Okay, so welcome to Bind It All Basics. Today we're going to be binding this cover onto this notepad using these Bind It All wires, which I will cut to length with these wire cutters. I've also got a piece of blank card I'm going to be using as a punching guide. If you want to try this yourselves, this kind of notepad you can get for about 10 pence in Asda, or in the US they sell them in big lots for 5 for $1, something like that. So I'm going to start with the cover, so I don't need the pad for now, or the wires, or the wire cutters. I've set the slider on my Bind It All to position B for continuous punching. So what I'm going to do now is punch this piece of card to make my guide for when I start the cover. So place it in your machine just to the right of the first hole there and punch. And there you can see we have our 6 holes. This second hole is what I'm going to use to lock onto the slider here. So just tilt that forward, put it back in there, and then lock that onto the post. And then punch again. And you can see that our holes continue nicely along the edge. So continue now until I finish the whole piece of card. So there is our finished guide, punched from side to side. If you're working on a project of 12 inches or bigger, you can just tape 2 of these together and then punch it to make a guide for that project. But it's more than big enough for our 3.5 inch wide cover. Obviously 3.5 inches, that equals 7 holes, because we know the Bind It All machine punches 1 hole every half an inch. So what I do is I ignore the 2 end holes on my guide and I position my cover edge to edge with the guide so that I have an even space each side of the cover between the holes. Once I'm happy with that, I can pick it up, put it in my machine and lock the first hole on the guide and then punch. When I remove it, you can see we now have the first 6 holes punched on our cover. I can discard the guide now because it's only the first punch that matters. So I can put this back in the machine, line up this second hole on my slider guide and complete punching the cover. And there we have our nicely spaced 7 holes ready for binding. Now I'm going to do the same with the pages from my pad and the back cover, and then I'll meet you back here in a minute and we'll carry on. Okay, so we're ready now to bind the pad together. I've got my Bind It All machine, my wire cutters, my Bind It All wires, my stack of punched pages, back and cover, and my wire size guide that comes with the Bind It All machine. Now the first thing to do is to cut my wires to length. So I know this is 7 holes across, so I cut 7 of these off. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and just cut on the straight piece there at the end. Now notice there are 2 different sides to these wires. This is the side that gets inserted through the pages. This is the piece that goes against the back cover to allow your pages to turn freely. So this is the section of the machine where we close the wires around the pad, and this knob just slides this section in and out to adjust the size. So find the size of wires you're using on the guide. I'm using 3/4 inch here. They're a little bit too big for this project really, but they're the only ones I have with me right now, so that's what I'm using. As a general guide, take your project, measure the thickness of the stack of pages and covers, and then go up a size or 2 to get the best match. Sometimes it's nice to have really big oversized wires in your projects, but you never want to have them too small because the pages don't turn very well. So measure the thickness, see what that is, and then go up a size or 2 in your wires. Alright, so we're going to put the wires through the holes. What you need to do is imagine this book has already been bound and just flip the back cover over the way it would go if the wires were actually there. So once that's been done, we insert the wires through the holes and out the back of our project. I'm just going to adjust this section now to make sure it's the right size to close those wires. So insert your size guide and just turn the wire until until it's just held firmly in position, but can be pulled out with a little bit of effort. There we go. So take our stack of pages, pretend the wires are little legs, and just stand it up inside that space. Now this section is too narrow to do this whole book in one go, so I have to do two tries. So first of all, put it in there, hold those steady, and move the handle down slowly all the way until it stops. Release it, move it along to do the rest of your wires, and then close the handle again and release it. Bring your cover back around to the back, and there we have one perfectly bound, spiral bound notepad.